Okay, hello everyone. Hello world. Let's just start with React. And today we are going to learn React. I say we are going to learn React because I too need to learn React. I'm not very good at it. In fact, I don't know React at all. Considering that, what's the best way to learn React? I thought let's just go to the documentation because usually the documentations contain everything that you need to know. It's simple as that. I just go to Google, search for React Talks. The first link I get is getting started with React. And this is the page that I get. So let's just take a quick look at it. It says that React is a declarative, component-based, learn once, write anywhere JavaScript library for building user interfaces. Well, all of it may not make sense to us right now, but I'm sure we would figure something out soon. So if we scroll down, we can see that they have given us a live editor to test some things out. And yeah, so if I check this first example, I can see that the output contains hello Adeen, which is my name. And if I look into the code, I can see that my name is over here, which means that definitely this is where they're taking the input of my name. So if I try to change this name to something like coding blocks, I get hello coding blocks. And if I simply look at this line, I can see that this name is being passed to the hello message thing, which happens to be a class over here. And this class extends React.component, so it definitely is a type of a React component. And if I look into it, it has some kind of a render function. I'm not really sure what that does right now. But if I look to the left, I can see that render is a method that takes input data and returns what to display. Okay, so inside of render, if we see the return line, it contains a single div, and I guess that is what being returned over here. And yes, it makes sense because it contains hello and this.props.name. So it has some this.props. I'm sure we would look into that later. And then it prints out the name that I have given. Yeah, sounds pretty easy to follow, simple to understand. Okay, so I have a comment that can I please teach you in Hindi? Okay, I would need some input from the hosts over here. Anyone from Team Coding Blocks, can I move to Hindi as per the comments, or should I continue in English? Okay, so I have several people asking me to speak in Hindi. Please, someone from the host team, from Team Coding Blocks, please let me know if I should continue in Hindi or continue in English. Okay, I guess I'm going to continue in English since this is a digital event and it's simultaneously being broadcast to several regions in India. And Hindi is not a language that everyone may understand, but I guess all of you may understand a little bit of English. I'll try to keep it simple. I'll try to speak slowly. Please follow through, and I guess this would be definitely easy. So yes, today we are going to build. I don't know. Let's build a to-do application. Right. So I was over here. As you can see, the name that I type over here is what gets displayed over here. I'll move it back to Adeen, and I can see that the result is hello Adeen. Yeah, this looks simple, but I don't want to continue making my app on their editor on their website. I want a standalone application. So yeah, I click on the getting started button, and this is what I get. Okay, so React is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. We already know that. Try React. Yes, we would definitely want to try React, but not online. We want to download it and run our own application. Yeah, so we want to create a new React app. Right, and yeah, we would use a tool chain for that. Okay, I have actually shared my screen. There seems to be an issue. Yeah, I'm just waiting for my screen sharing to be fixed. Anyway, so meanwhile, while you cannot see my screen, let's just look at some questions. So yeah, I have a question from Karan Sagar. The question is when to use React and when to use Angular. So yeah, well, actually, you can use either of them. Right now, they're both mature enough. They're both supported well enough that you can use either of them for your web applications. Angular is mostly used for enterprise level applications. React is also as well, but Angular offers more support. It has a more, I would say, a rigid structure to it, and React is more free for you to use. So you have more flexibility, more freedom on how you can use React, but that is not something that Angular offers you. But Angular compensates for that by offering more support. Yeah, I know my screen is not visible right now. It is being fixed by the organizing team. Please wait a little bit. Yeah. Okay. So, which is better, Redux or hooks? Okay. So, definitely hooks. Definitely go for hooks. Hooks are the future. Redux will not be used soon. It may be deprecated even in a few years. Another question: does React support only few browsers? No, React supports all browsers that have support for JavaScript. So unless you're using some old versions of Internet Explorer, React would work on all the browsers. Okay, is my voice not audible enough, or is it breaking in between? Like, is the volume too low, or is it breaking? I guess it's audible for most of the people, so it may be an issue with your internet connection. Okay, anyway, let me just try to remind the organizing team once again that my screen is not visible. Okay, so everyone can see my screen now. Is my screen visible now? Hello? Can you all see my screen? Am I audible and is my screen visible?
Yes, Adeen, you are audible and we can
I
hear
guess
you.
we still have some issues. Hello? Okay, cool. So, right. So we want to create a new React app, and right on the website, we have a heading, create a new React app, right? Seems pretty simple. And yeah, we would definitely like to learn how to create a new React app. Right. So yeah, you would definitely have many options of creating a new React app. There are certain third-party libraries, certain methods to integrate them into an existing HTML app, and certain JavaScript toolchains. And we would definitely like to use a toolchain because it would make our work easier and simpler. And yeah, looking at the first option, we are definitely learning React, and we want to create a new single-page web app. So this seems nice. Let us check it out. Right. So create React app is a comfortable environment for learning React. Cool. Yeah, we can read it later, but this seems to be what does the trick for us. So let's just copy this, open up a new terminal, and start with it. I guess I need to increase the font size over here. Yeah. Right. So checking it out, the first command that we need to execute is npx create react app space my app. And what npx does is it executes your commands, which is what is written over here in the node. It's a package runner tool. So it would run the create react app package and create react app and the name of our app, which is right now simple tool. Okay, now npx scripts and mostly npm packages are notorious for taking a lot of time for downloading everything, installing everything, and running. And they also take up quite a bit of space. So let's just wait a bit and hopefully it would be done soon. Okay, so meanwhile it's doing this, let's check out what's written in the documentation over here. The next step that we need to do is cd into the folder, which is our app name, and then npm start. So npm start should, I guess, technically start our application. Let's hope it does that. There are also some other options for running React applications, but they are mostly suitable for larger applications, I guess. Okay, so this is still going to take some more time. Meanwhile, let's just check out hello world to React. This is what it looks like. React DOM.render h1 hello world, close h1, get document. Okay, so just by looking at this code, it gives me an idea that wherever this snippet is placed, it would search for your root element ID, a div or any tag with the ID of root in your web page, which is referenced by document, and it would place this code over there. This is what React does, right? Okay, now it would be very helpful if all of you also go to the docs and read it meanwhile. I have a question, which Linux distro you are using? So right now I'm using Manjaro Linux, which is a type of Arch Linux. Right, I'll just spell it out for you in the chat. Right. Cool. So this is complete. It says happy hacking. And let's just cd into our to-do app. Okay, my voice isn't clear. Let me try to speak louder. cd into to-do. I am inside to-do. If I quickly check out things that are inside over here, there's a node modules folder. Then there's a public folder and an src folder. And then there are some files, package.json, readme.md, and yarn.log. I guess I should just npm start as what was written in the documentation, and my basic React app should start. Okay, starting the development center server, and it's moved me to the browser. Cool. So this is what's there in the browser. There's a logo which is spinning, and below that we have this text which specifies that we need to edit src/app.js and save to reload. Cool. So let's just try that. Let's just try to edit src/app.js and save to reload. Right. src and app.js. Okay, so is the font size fine, or should I zoom in a little bit more? Please let me know if the font size is good enough, and I'll proceed further. Cool. So, right. You can see that the first few lines are importing some of the stuff. We'll look at that later. Let's just come straight to what looks like a little bit of HTML. And yeah, so it says that edit src, right. So let's just try to edit this line. And hello to box. Save it. Now let me check if our web page has been updated to reflect that. Right, so it works. So coming back to our code, we can see that we are returning some HTML, and that is the HTML which is being shown on the web page. This makes perfect sense. But instead of returning simple HTML, we can also make some things with our HTML. And a simple example could be a button that increments a counter, right? It's pretty simple. Let's just try that. For that, I would like to create a new component. Now, components are small parts of React applications, just that. Of course, there are more details to it, but for now, they are just a small part of an application. That's a component. Let's just create a new folder for all our components. Components. And create a new file with a component to increment a counter. So the component name can be simply counter.js. And let me try to remove all of this stuff over here. And we would want to replace this stuff with whatever comes from counter.js. So first of all, let us create something in counter.js. Right. So before we want to do anything, we must first import React. And I also like to import component with React, although it's not necessary. You can simply use react.component. But right now I'm importing React and importing component from React. That's it. Then I would create a new class, counter, which would extend the component. So essentially, this would become a custom React component created by us. And at the end of this file, I would export this class. This would become my default export. So whenever someone imports anything from this class or from this file, actually, this is the class, the counter class, which would be exported by default. And as we can see, we wait, where's the web browser? Okay. Right, looking at the hello world once again, or rather at the, yep. Right, so we can see over here that they had a render method, and whatever was returned by the render method is what was shown to us. So let us try to emulate that behavior over here by creating a render method. And inside of the render method, we want to return some stuff. And I would want to return a div. And inside of the div, for now, let's just write a simple text counter. Coming back to app, I want to use that counter over here. And this is how you do that. It's that simple. But before I actually use that, I have to import it as well. So I would do that by simply writing import counter from the path to counter. And the path is components dot slash components slash counter. And hopefully this should work. Yes, it does actually. So this is our default app being returned. And we replace the contents that was there previously with counter, which is our own component. And this is how you create a simple React component. You import React because it is a React component. And then you may want to import component. If you do not want to import component, you can simply import React and extend React.component. And this would still work without any errors. It's the same thing. So we have this, but it's not very useful right now. I mean, we could have simply written it inside of our main file. What we want over here is we want to add some dynamic stuff to it. We want to handle data, we want to modify it, and then we want to process it and display it as well. To do that, we have what's known as a state in React. And states are basically just think of them as global variables. Whenever you have a state in a React component, it is accessible throughout the component. That's it. And states have another good property about it, that whenever there are any changes to the state in React, the React component would re-render. So if there's any change anywhere in the state, that component using the state would be refreshed, re-rendered, and the updated version would be visible on your web browsers. So looking at the state, what do we want? We want a counter. Let's just create a counter variable and assign an initial value of 0. I have a counter variable, I have an initial value of 0, and let's just display that value over here. So I can simply do counter value, and the syntax to do that is to simply enclose it in braces or curly brackets, whatever you may call it. And it's counter. Counter is a part of state, and state is referred by this dot state dot counter. Don't have to give extension to for counter. Okay, Bharat, I'm not exactly clear with your question. What do you mean by you don't have to give extension for counter? Right. So meanwhile, let's just take a look at this again. So whatever's inside of these braces is first evaluated and then displayed. So we have this dot state dot counter. So we are fetching the value of counter from our current state. And as we can see, the value is right now 0. If I change this value to 2 over here, the value gets updated to 2. Right. But this is just not good enough, right? We are not going to change our code every time we want a button to update the value of counter. So let's just move it back to 0 and create a button to update it. Right? Buttons are simply created with the button tag. And let's just put some text, for example, increment. And if I take a look at the app again, I have a button with the text increment, but clicking on it does nothing right now. So let's take a look at the React docs again for how to do that. So inside of docs, you would find the main concept section, and inside of this section, the 6 point is handling events, and our event is a click event on the button. We want to handle a click event on the button. To do that, I guess this is how it's done. At least this is what it looks like. So coming back to button, and let's just define something to be done when it's clicked. And let's call it a handle click function, and define the handle click function over here. So whenever the button is clicked, we want to increase the value of the state of the counter with 1. Now, React states are the state variables are kind of special in that you cannot modify them directly. You have to use something known as a SetState function, which is nothing complicated. It's a simple setter method. If you are familiar with object-oriented programming, it's a simple setter method. So I want to find out the SetState method from the current object, this dot SetState, and inside of this dot SetState, I want to update counter. So I want to set the counter to the current value of counter plus 1. This looks good enough. Let's just try it. Okay, and we have an error. Handle click is not defined. Now, definitely it would not be defined because the handle click is not yet available to inside of the render method. It is available to the current calling object, and therefore we need to use this dot handle click, or the other option is to bind this, but let's not go into that right now. So the error's gone. Let's just try to increment it. I click on increment and it changes to 1. Again, changes to 2, changes to 3. So yeah, this works. Pretty simple, right? We have a state which is kind of a global variable with a special property that whenever the value of these variables are changed, our function is rendered again. Then we had a function called handle click, which would be executed every time the button would be clicked. And inside of this handle click, we are going to set the state. SetState is used to update the state. And inside of SetState, we are setting the value of the counter to the current value of counter plus 1. And it works. Okay, so I have a question. I meant when you wrote the path component. Okay, so there's a question from Bharat Agrawal that when we wrote the path for counter, over here, import counter from /component/counter, we did not specify the extension .js. And yeah, we did not do that because we don't need to do that. React does that automatically for us. I mean, all we can import is a JS file in this way. For all of the files, we are specifying extensions for CSS and SVG files. But whenever you are importing a JS component, you do not have to specify the extension. It's just like that. I mean, I cannot do anything about it. That's how React works, I guess. So we have created a component which has a state, which has a button, and whenever we click on the button, our state gets updated. Now let us try to modify this to create a to-do application so that we can save our notes. And to do that, let's just remove counter variable and replace it with a list of to-dos. And just for the purpose of testing, I would want to pre-fill the list with a few sample values, and I'll add the new values later on. So let's just write test and test2. And right, I don't want a counter value over here. I want to-dos. And let's just leave the button for now. What I want over here is to loop over the list of to-dos and display it inside of an unordered list. Right. To do that, I would have to create an unordered list first. And okay, I have a question. Are we using hooks today? So we are not going to be using hooks today. I mean, I won't be demonstrating them. But yeah, if you want, I can quickly show you a web application that I created previously that used hooks. Okay, another question. When we use React with TypeScript, is JSX become TSX? I guess, yeah, it does. But I mean, it doesn't really matter for us because the file names won't change at all. Okay, so we have an unordered list, but we need to populate that list. And to do that, we need to write some expression that loops over some stuff. This is how you write expressions in React, just like we did with counter. You do that inside of curly brackets or braces. And we have our to-dos inside of state. So let's just go to this .state .to-dos map. Now, map is a function in JavaScript which would iteratively give you each element inside of an array. So map would give us the one of the to-dos and the index of the to-do. And with our to-do and index, we want to do something. So we are creating a function. And inside of the function, we want to return something as well. That's a list item. We have our to-do, which is given to us by a map. We would simply print that out. To-do. I'm saving the file, and I hope this works. Okay, it does. The formatting doesn't look very nice, but yeah, it does. It gives us a list of outputs. So we have a list of to-dos and we are able to display it. The next logical step should be to add a new to-do. And to do that, we need a button. The button would have, definitely change the text to add. And let's just keep the name to handle click. Now, before the button, we also need a text input. Input where the type is text and whose name is, I guess, to-do input. And the value would be this dot state dot to-do input. Right, and I should also create a to-do input state over here, state variable. Right, so we if I look at my browser again, I have an input box and I have an add button. Coming back to the code, what I want is whenever I click on the button, whatever is the value in this box, I want that value to be added to my to-dos list in the state. So let's just replace our handle click function and rewrite it again. We want to take in the value. This is the value, this is set to do input. And we want to add it to our to-dos list. So I would definitely set state again. And this time I'm going to change to-dos. So to-dos would again definitely be a list. I would definitely want to keep the current values inside of to-dos as well. So I would spread it out. What this does is it would take these values and place them over here. So this is essentially equivalent to, right, so if I write this, it's the same as writing to-dos. I'm spreading that current list, but I want to take the current values from the state. So I'm doing that. And then I want to take in the value of to-do input. Let's just hope that it works. If it doesn't, we'll try to debug it. Okay, so definitely to-do input is not defined. And why is it not defined? Because it is a part of the state. This dot state dot to-do input. Coming back, it opens without errors. Let's just try to add something else. Test 3. And unfortunately, I cannot type anything. You're not able to see my keyboard, but I'm typing on my keyboard and nothing is showing up on the screen. Now, why is that? Coming back to the code, we can see that we do have a text input, but we have assigned the value to be equal to this.state.todo input. And just a few moments ago, I said that the state variables cannot be changed directly. We have to use a setter, which is the SetState over here. And to do that, I must specify an onChange method over here, which would handle the change for us. Right. And what do we want to do? We want to take in whatever input is being given to us, assign that to to-do input. To do that, it's as simple as setting the state once again. And this time we are going to set to-do input to be equal to E, which is the event that we got. The event is the change event on this input box. And we are going to get the value out of it. Save that, I refresh the page, and suddenly I'm able to type again. So I hope that when I click on add over here, I would get the test3 added to my list of to-do items. And yes, it works. Right, it does, pretty cool. But we would also want to clear the value of the input box whenever I press on this button, because I definitely do not want to add the same to-do name again and again. This becomes really simple over here because we want to do that whenever this button is clicked. We already have a function for that, which is handle click. Once we have reached our handle click, it means that the add button was clicked, and it becomes as simple as modifying the to-do input value to an empty string. I type test3, I click on add, and it gets added. Right. So our to-do app works. It's that simple. Let me take a quick look at any questions if there are. Okay, so there's one question from Kushagra Vadva, and it says no package JSON. What to do? Okay, I guess you need to reinitialize your create React app. There must be some issue with that. So if you rerun npx space create dash react dash app space the name of your app, and you have to cd into that folder, right? Cd into the folder with the name of your app. Once you do that, and then you execute npm start, your app should start. Okay, so our to-do app works. And I guess that's it. This is how you make a to-do app. Create a state with two variables, one to handle the current input and one for your list of to-dos. Let me do that. Yep. And then you show your list of to-dos, have an input, and have a button to submit your input. Whenever you click on the button, your input is added to your list of to-dos. And while you are typing your input, this is how you set your this is how you set the input that you are receiving to your state variable. And this is known as a controlled input. So coming back to React, moving on to forms, right? We have controlled components and we have uncontrolled components. This over here, yeah. So this over here, this input, it is a controlled input. It is a controlled component. What this means is that any changes to this are directly related to a state variable. Essentially, that is what it means. And we have some uncontrolled inputs as well. So the changes to our input would not be a part of our state variable. That's it. So if there are any questions till now, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, we should move forward. Okay, so I guess there are no questions, no further questions. Right, so this is how a basic React app works. Now, what do we know about React till now? We know that we have an app.js file inside of an SRC folder, and this is where everything that's going to be shown is written. But where does app.js put everything into our HTML, our index.html file? Let's try to explore that. I mean, it cannot be beyond any of these files, and there aren't many files over here. So let's take a look at index.js. Yeah, this looks good. Okay, so index.js is rendering a React app, and it is showing us app, and we are importing app from app.js. So this is where this happens. But I'm not really sure right now where index.js is put into index.html. So let's look at some other files as well. If I take a look at over here, I can't see anything that resembles anything useful. So let's take a look at public. Yeah, public contains a favicon file, which is a usual icon. And then we have our index.html. Looking at index.html, we have our div ID root. So this div is where all of, where's index.html? Yeah, right. So we can see that we are targeting the ID root, and then this div, where's that div now? Right. So then this div is targeted, it is selected, and all of the contents that are being returned are put inside of this div. This also definitely means that if you make some changes to this file, it would be visible. But it's not really advisable because you don't want to make changes to these files. You want to actually make changes to your React components and work from there. But in any case, if I write something like a new heading and something simple, test, I should actually be able to see test on all my files. And it works. So we have a public folder. The public folder contains an index.html. I guess everyone should be familiar with this. Then inside of the SRC folder, we have an index.js where we are targeting a div with the ID root, and everything that we have, everything that is being written from React is being put into that div. Right now we are importing app and putting that into the div. This is our app. This app is importing counter and showing us the counter. And this is our counter component, which has actually now been replaced with a to-do list. I guess that was clear. Let me quickly take a look again at the questions. Okay, so I have a new question. Can React be used with Flask framework? Yes, definitely. See, React only works on the front end, and Flask is something that works on the back end only. So what you would have to do is that you would have to replace your Jinja templates with your Flask app, and it should work similarly. Okay, another question. Please show React hooks before ending the session. Okay, you can check plural site as well. Yeah, fine. What is React.Strictmode? Okay, so what is React.Strictmode? For that, we should come back to the documentation over here. The forms, going back. Okay, so it must be in the documentation somewhere, but right now let's just quickly find out the answer to that. Right, so looking at the documentation, strict mode is a tool for highlighting potential problems in an application. So if you check out this documentation page, you would get a more detailed answer. But in short, what it does is it simply reports all the errors and all the warnings that you may encounter. And it is a way for you to avoid those errors and warnings and potential bugs. That's all. React hooks. Yeah. So let's take a quick look at React hooks. But I don't think I have the time for that. So instead of that, let's just try to do that online on a pre-rendered template. Yes. Okay, so this is not a functional component. Let me quickly find out a pre-built functional component to save time. Or guess what? Wait, I'll just send you a link. Just search for ReactCon 2018. The first video that you get is why is it not pausing? Yeah. So the first video that you get, ReactCon 2018, this is the conference where React hooks were actually first introduced. If you check out the first talk by, I guess his name was Dan Abramov. So check out the talk by Dan Abramov, and he would go into great details and he would explain it from the very beginning. So I guess that would be better. Right. And how, please explain the state management. Right. Let's come back to counter.js right now. Okay. So, Arun, what exactly do you want to know about state management? Arun, I'm repeating my question again. What exactly would you like to know about state management? Okay. Meanwhile, I guess I should move on to the next question. So in body tag, we have nested two div. One is around app and one render function give. Yes, that's actually true. Let's just quickly take a look at this. Wait. Look at the elements. We have body, then we have a root div, then we have an app div, And then we have the div, which is returned to us by our counter.js file or the to-dos component right now. Yes, that's correct. Can we have one outer block only? Yes, definitely you can have a single outer block. For that, you would have to like simply, instead of returning this div over here, simply return a single counter. Let us come over here, let us update. And inside of root div, we have the to-dos component div. Yeah, it's that simple. Okay, so another question by Arun. He wants to know about Redux. So I'm not going to go into Redux right now because, as far as I believe, Redux is a thing of the past. It is going to be deprecated soon, I hope. And instead of Redux, you should be focusing on hooks and using those. Right now, this webinar is supposed to be a 101 introduction. And for the introduction, I feel that classful components are good enough. You can go into functional components and hooks later on. But to understand the basics, I guess classful components are much easier and provide a simpler entry point to React. Okay, so you wanted to know how to use Redux. So yeah, same answer. Okay, I guess it's almost 5, so my time is about to be up. That's all we had for today. We wanted to build a to-do app, and we did that. And that's how you do it. So always remember, look at the documentation. Your React documentation is your friend. It's very well documented, and the documentation is usually always up to date, so you would not have any issues. If you still have issues, Google for some solutions, and then there's always Stack Overflow. So yeah. Okay, Kushagra Wadhwa has another question: where to get package.json? Your package.json would be automatically generated by the Create React app. And if you're having issues, I would suggest that you need to check your file structure and ensure that you actually moved inside of your application directory. You are not outside of it. Right? If we check Create React app, after you execute npx create react app space my app, you need to actually cd into your app. Once you do that, you would have package.json. You would not have any issues. Okay, so my time is up. Thank you all for joining. I hope it was useful and it was a good entry point into React. Definitely check out the documentation, try out the tutorials. Once you do that, it would be easier to move on to more higher level stuff. And surely we can arrange for a much more detailed or a higher level webinar soon enough. But till the next time, thank you for joining. And okay, one last doubt, one last question. Yes, Gaurav, please continue. Okay, so to connect with me, I am sending my Twitter address in the chat. Okay, I'm not really sure why I'm not able to send my Twitter handle, but okay, Kushagra, if you want to connect with me, you can send me a message on Twitter. My Twitter handle is the same as my name. It's Adeen Shukla without any spaces. Twitter.com/Adeen Shukla. Okay. Gaurav, I'm still waiting for your question. Please continue with your question. And one question from Sanath in between. React is used in what apps in real world? Okay, so Sanath, React is used everywhere in all sorts of applications, basically everywhere. Okay, so I cannot find any. Let's just go to GitHub, I guess. So I remember reading a list of popular companies using React, but I'm not sure where I did that. Let me just try to do that. Yeah, so definitely Facebook, Instagram, Khan Academy, Codecademy, Yahoo Mail, all of these use React. New York Times uses React. Will there be another session? I hope. Maybe, if you all are interested. I heard React.js is more powerful than Angular. Is that true? Okay, so this is a very subjective answer. There is no such thing as something being more powerful than something else. Angular, as I said towards the starting of this session, Angular is more rigid. You have to design your application with its conventions and rules. React offers a lot more flexibility in that regard. And Angular is also a bit larger than React, if you consider it. So Angular is mostly suited for enterprise level applications, while React is more suited for consumer level applications. But that's just my thoughts, and it may differ. Now, there is nothing such as being more powerful than another framework. Each framework has its pros and cons. Angular is just as good as React, and all of them can perform all of the functions. Right? The syntax may be a little bit different, the conventions may be a little bit different, but there is no such thing as something being more powerful than something else, especially in terms of these JavaScript frameworks. I guess that's it. I am already over time a bit. So thank you all for joining. I'll see you in the next time.